Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. For this episode, I have some thank yous to cover. Several folks have sent me some VCLT items over the past week or so, and want to take a moment to say thank you to each of them, show off the cool stuff that they sent, and say a few words about it along the way. The first one is not technically a VCLT. It's a thank you to my wife who got me something pretty cool for Father's Day. This video is being shot a day or two before Father's Day, and she gave me my present early. Those of you who have watched anything over on Heavy Metallurgy in the past few days have already seen this, but my wife decided to get both myself and Marty, my co-host over on Heavy Metallurgy, of course, a matching set of customized heavy metallurgy Funko Pops. I had never heard of anyone getting custom Funkos made before, but yep, she came up with it. And so you've got a Marty Worm one here, Marty holding his guitar, and you've got the Professor Steel one over here holding a microphone. So yeah, I thought it was a really, really cool and sweet present from her. She got one set for me and ordered a matching set and sent them to Marty. Marty opened them on camera for the album club this past Wednesday, and I showed them off again Friday night when I was streaming with Aaron while Marty was out hanging out with Jim and such. So a big thank you to my sweetie. It was a really, really cool gift idea for sure. All right. Moving on to some VCLT in the strict sense of the word. Let's see, I've had three packages arrive sort of unannounced in the past week or so. One of them comes from Brian, who used to have the Brian Arkham channel. Brian's been on tons of live streams and stuff. He's been on Heavy Metallurgy with Marty and I before. Really nice guy. I've sent him some stuff. He sent me some really cool VCLT in the past. And yeah, not long ago, got a package from him that had several cool things in it. I think I've got them all piled together here. Big apologies to somebody if I forget something. But Brian had included a couple of old issues of Metal Maniacs. These are 2007, 2008. This is, later in the run. I wasn't subscribed to the magazine anymore. So yeah, I didn't have these issues. Very fun kind of flipping through them, reading some of the older interviews, seeing what was getting reviewed. This is long after the, Jeff Wagner and Marty Richtonen era of the magazine, but still a lot of cool stuff in it. It's always kind of fun to look through those. And Brian also sent a small pile of CDs. Some pretty interesting ones here. The first one, a band I had never heard of before called Stranger. The album is called Pretty Angels, which is a title that might cause you some concern. On the other hand, it has a chessboard on the cover, and if we've all learned anything from Dreadful Rick over the years, it's that anything with a chessboard and or a tank on the cover can't be all bad. This album, though, maybe puts that to a little bit to the test. Stranger made two albums, it turns out. They were a German band. They made one in the mid 80s. That's, I've heard snippets of it. I've never played the whole thing, but it sounds like it's a pretty straightforward, like mid 80s German, that kind of proto power metal sound that lots of German bands had. But this one came out several years later in 89. A lot of the lineup was different. Some of the guys in this lineup have ties to the band Chroming Rose from the early 90s. And the material on this one is, much lighter in content. Keyboards are more towards the front. Tracks are a bit softer. It works pretty well, I think, as like an 80s kind of AOR, rock album with a prominent synthesizer line. Not really a power metal outing at all. But so yeah, if you kind of have to just adjust your ears, and if you're wanting to hear it in that, yeah, I'm in the mood for, just some fun 80s rock kind of music, Stranger fits the bill pretty well for that. So it was cool learning about that band because, yeah, I had never encountered them before. Let's see, also in the stack from Brian were two CDs by, he said this was a kind of a local band in his area. They're called Inner Siege, and they're very much working in kind of a straightforward, what you would say, American power metal style, where they're kind of doing more the Queensryche kind of thing, not the, super fast guitars or silly costumes or any of that kind of power metal thing. No, they're not as heavy as like an Iced Earth or Metal Church, and they're not being overly progressive either. They don't really belong in the Dream Theater camp. So yeah, maybe something more akin to the Queensryche kind of camp. The two albums are separated by a good number of years. I think there's about 9 years in between them. One is from, let's see, this is the earlier one, which I think was from 2012, and then the second album was from 2021. So the band's been around for a while, put out two albums. And yeah, they're both pretty similar in style and pretty solid listens. So cool to check them out. A band I had never heard of before. Let's see, next in the stack. This one is a cool album with a cool backstory. This one I have heard of. It's a band called Thin Ice, spelled THYNN. Bonus points for bad 80s metal band spelling. And this is a kind of a reissue. There's a trick to this one. It's on the No Remorse label, who of course does a lot of collating older 80s metal stuff and getting it out. Brian mentioned there's a video on YouTube that kind of gives the full backstory of this album. I haven't seen the video, but I know the backstory to it because it was a big deal in collector circles maybe 15 or so years ago that the album was recorded but never got officially released. There were just some test pressings made up. But just kind of through serendipity, one of those test pressings did end up in the hands of one of the big European heavy metal collectors. It was kind of essentially a blind buy situation where he got, some test pressings and, I was like, well, okay, this could be interesting. Don't know what to expect. And it turned out to be a really solid, energetic heavy metal album. It's not a skull crusher. This is not, blackened thrash, death, gore, grind, blah, blah, blah. None of that kind of stuff. Much more straightforward, good, solid heavy metal. But it was good enough that, yeah, it ended up really catching on when people got a chance to hear it. And since there are only, essentially a handful of test pressings existed, it kind of immediately went from unknown to like, holy grail status as soon as people started to find out about it. But yeah, then No Remorse was able to track the band down, with some help, I'm guessing, and did give the thing a proper release on both CD and vinyl. So really cool that it's actually available for everyone to hear, check out, and get a physical copy of. It's the kind of thing that's not even worth putting on a want list, even if you love it to death, because I mean, how many test pressings do you make of something? Five, 10, maybe a dozen if you're planning on sending some out to radio stations? It's almost non-existent if that's the only form it exists in. So you can't hope to track it down or anything. But it is cool that it actually made it out. And it is a good listen too. Very cool album. And let's see, last in the stack, but certainly not least, Brian found a really cool collection of demo stuff from Victor Griffin, longtime guitarist in the Death Row phase of Pentagram. And also, he, of course, went on to work with Place of Skulls after that, was back in Pentagram in the 2010s for a while. Fantastic guitarist, known for this very heavy sound that if I'm remembering right, he kind of like tuned down to A. I think that's right. I'm not a guitarist. The A's and the D's and the F sharp minor blah blahs are get a little lost on me. I just don't have that background. But yeah, Victor was always known for having this incredibly heavy, doomy but powerful, sounding guitar tone. And this is something I guess he just put out more or less himself. It's on something called Outlaw Recordings, which I'm not really familiar with. But essentially, it's a lot of demo material. Some of it's from his time in Pentagram, especially like um, the years leading up to the third album he was on, Be Forewarned, in the early 90s. But a lot of the tracks are things that he recorded after he left Pentagram. As with many people who left Pentagram over the years, it wasn't necessarily under the best of circumstances. Victor returned home to Tennessee and kind of had to do a little bit of soul searching to figure out, what do I want to do next? But, was still tinkering with some songs and ideas and recorded some of them. And some of that kind of stuff's included here too, which is kind of cool to check out. One of the interesting highlights here, there's a few cover songs, and the one that's incredibly good is I love his rendition of Ain't It Fun, which is an old Dead Boys track. And he just does a really, really solid version on it. It's kind of slowish here, very almost kind of morose sounding. Yeah, really excellent delivery there. I've always really liked Victor Griffin's guitar work. Like the guy a ton. Really cool to check out, all this demo stuff for sure. So a big thank you to Brian. Um, nice stuff. And just again, appeared out of the blue, had no forewarning it was showing up. There's a big box on the porch, and it's like, I didn't order anything. The shape or size. What is this? It's always fun to check some stuff out like that. All right. The next package that showed up, yeah, kind of a bit out of the blue. It came from longtime viewer Frank. Frank's always leaving very detailed and interesting comments on videos on my channel, over on sorry Heavy Metallurgy a lot too. Frank is an old school headbanger for sure. Knows in great detail a ton of stuff from the 70s, early 80s, all that. A real mechanic when it comes to the nuts and bolts of those bands. So always good comments from Frank. And yeah, he's pointed me towards some really cool stuff over the years. This time, he sent me a copy of a book that I had never heard of. It's called No Sleep Till Saltburn, uh, and is written by a guy named Mark Gregory. I doubt anyone watching this has heard of Mark Gregory. I certainly never had, and I don't think Frank had either before he kind of stumbled into the book. The deal here is simply that it's an autobiography by Mark Gregory, who was basically like in his late teens, early 20s during the new wave of British heavy metal. He lived in northeastern England, and so he kind of became involved in that, northeastern metal scene. He was not in a band. He was not a, huge mover and shaker. He didn't own Neat Records. He wasn't, chief editor of Crank or anything like that. He was just kind of a local guy who really liked heavy metal and ended up through kind of a series of odd events just getting more and more connected to some of the bands, radio stations, the local venues. And so he kind of became just, one of those guys that bands could go to help get the word out about what they were doing. He could help them out a little bit. In some cases, he was able to help them a good deal. In other cases, things kind of went spectacularly wrong. I've been reading through it and it's a fun read. It's written with a pretty a healthy dose of self-deprecation. Mark's not out to claim that, he was, the mad genius behind the new wave of British heavy metal or anything. He's like, here's just some fun stories about, how blitheringly inept and naive I was while trying to help some of these bands get to the next level. But it is kind of cool, some of the things that he got to, do. And again, just kind of some things would land in his lap out of nowhere. Some things just kind of slowly built up over time where he got more experience and got more opportunities. Some things went off spectacularly well. And there are also some times reading this with some of the adventures where they're just total facepalm moments. It's just like, oh my God, dude, you didn't actually do that, did you? I mean, I would know not to do that. So you get to see some of the missteps that the youth of the day might have made while trying to live that heavy metal lifestyle. So yeah, it's been a really fun read so far. If hearing more of the kind of the street level personal accounts from somebody who was actually living there, active on the scene, but not a big star, not somebody that the spotlight was ever really on, but can give you, all those kind of smaller anecdotes that you're not going to ever hear anywhere else. They will eventually be completely lost to time if they're not documented this way. Then this is a really cool read, and I'd encourage you to track down a copy. Again, it's called No Sleep Till Saltburn. If you want to know what Saltburn is, I'm sorry, this is not a book review. You're going to have to buy the book and find out. But yeah, big thanks to Frank for that one. It's been a really fun read so far. All right, third and last VCLT package that showed up came from David, who some of you will know as Metal Overkill. Another great guy who has left a lot of really insightful comments. Um, Checks out videos I post pretty much every week. Always leaves a nice reply. A lot of time has some extra details about whatever the topic is. So yeah, always fun to interact with. Same over in the live chat on heavy metallurgy events. David has just started his own channel on YouTube. He's already posted a couple of videos. I will try my best to remember to put a link to his channel in the show comments down below. Please go check it out and support him for sure. There's been a couple of guys starting new channels lately. Both him and Daryl, aka Celtic Frosty, have fired up the YouTube channels. So go check those guys out. Please subscribe to them. Check out their content. Leave some comments for them. Let them know what you like. Let them know if you think there's something they could do that might be fun, and help them, get a little bit of exposure. None of us are doing this kind of stuff to become rich or famous or anything like that. But still, it takes time and effort and, you know, a little bit of courage to turn on the camera and put yourself out there before YouTube. So give them some nice feedback and help them out as they get their channels launched. But yeah, it was kind of odd. I had actually sent David a record as VCLT a couple of weeks ago before I knew he was starting a channel. We were just chatting about something else. It was a video I posted a few weeks ago. He's like, that sounds like a cool album. I'm going to have to track a copy of it down. And it just so happened I had an extra copy sitting here. I was like, well, hey, if you want it, if you like it, I'll just send you this extra one. I don't need it, and you're welcome to it. So he was really excited to get that and wanted to send me something in return, which is completely not required. A big thing with, the VCLT concept is you're not trading, you're not giving something to someone in order to get something back. It's just like, here, kind of a cool surprise item that I think you'll like. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you'll have some fun with it, but it doesn't matter because it's a free surprise. There's no strings attached. It was really nice of Dave, though, to send some things back. He sent back a few really interesting things that are pretty cool. First up was a promo copy of the Shock Paris reunion album called Full Metal Jacket. Sorry, it took me a minute to find the title on the disc there. Anyway, but yeah, Shock Paris were a really cool band. They were on Auburn Records back in the 80s. Real distinctive vocalist named Vic Hicks. Always liked his voice a ton. It's got kind of a little bit of a gravelly lower tone, very full voice though. Decent singer though. It's not like it sounded, cartoonish or anything. He actually, had a really powerful singing voice. Loved the band's first two albums. They made a third one towards the late 80s called Concrete Killers that I haven't heard it in ages. I don't remember much about it. It didn't click with me back in the day. But yeah, the band, like many others, has become active again in recent years. I can't remember if this is, sorry, I gotta watch where I tap the item here. Can't remember if this album is their first comeback album or their second. There may be one other one I'm forgetting about. I don't think there is, but it's possible. But anyway, this one came out in, I think, 2020. Still has Vic Hicks singing. He still sounds quite good after all these years. And the songs are still pretty good. Chuck Paris always worked in just, again, a kind of, powerful, straightforward, heavy metal sound. No frills, no bullshit, just really good, solid metal. And that's kind of what you're getting here too. Now, the only downside or drawback to this, like with a lot of these reunion bands, you can't really go back and completely capture the exact sound you had back in the day. I mean, you're older, you've maybe had a few members rotate in and out, you're using different recording technologies and stuff like that. It's going to sound and feel a little bit different. So you can't pick up an album like this and expect it to sound exactly like their, Go for the Throat debut or, Steel and Starlight. Those albums are almost 40 years old at this point. The debut may be 40 years old at this point. You got to give them some wiggle room to sound a bit different. But yeah, this one still works out and is a pretty good listen. All right, also in the box from David was a recent EP by Heavy Sentence. If it looks a little funny, there's also a sentence sticker that's included in here. This is a three-track, 7-inch EP they released in 2024. Heavy Sentence, a very good, very fun band. Very new wave of British heavy metal inspired, but a very loud, energetic sound. The vocalist is another one who's got kind of a deeper, yeah, gruff sounding voice, but delivers with a lot of power. Really charismatic. Like him a lot. They released an album, it's been several years ago now, maybe like 2021, 2022, called Bang to Rights. That was a really fun listen, kind of came out of nowhere. And I think this is the only thing they've released since. So this came out in 2024. I'm hoping they'll have a new album pretty soon. I remember when this came out, it's like, it's only on a 7-inch. And I never had a chance to order it from anywhere. So yeah, it was really cool to see this. All three tracks on here are extremely good, very fun, kind of exactly what you want the band to do. Really high powered, energetic, new wave of British heavy metal feeling type tracks. Things that are easy to sing along, jump up, get some, the adrenaline flowing just a bit. So yeah, it's really cool to finally get to check that out. And then the last big thing in the box from David was the Mendes Prey compilation called The Never Ending Road. There was an early version of this that came out maybe 10 years ago, but No Remorse, I believe, yeah, No Remorse Records put this back out in 2024. So just last year with sort of an updated track list and stuff. It's a really nice gatefold package, a lot of pictures of the band and stuff. Uh, I love this band's first single from the new wave of British heavy metal era. It always has this kind of, big hawk carrying a guitar emblem on it. It's one of the best singles from the era. Now, a lot of people will say it leans more in the hard rock side of things. There's even a quote on the back of the gatefold that says, like, something to that effect, like indisputably hard rock as opposed to heavy metal, as a quote from like one of the reviews back in the day. And they toured with bands like Thin Lizzy, for example, kind of leaning in that direction. Fair enough. For my money, I'm okay calling them a heavy metal band, just with the understanding that, yeah, it's early 80s heavy metal. It's not meant to be thrash or death or anything that has the word core associated with it. If you want to call them hard rock, I don't know exactly where that dividing line falls. I'm not sure if anybody does. We could debate that another time. Regardless, excellent band, great musicianship, led with a very talented vocalist, Jai Seymour, who I got to interview several years ago. One of the only published interviews I've ever done. And yeah, just a super nice guy. He's had a career in like recording and studio stuff. I've talked about him in other videos. I won't go back over it all here. But yeah, really, really cool to see this. I have the older version of this on CD, but I'd never seen the vinyl copy of the new edition whatsoever. So that was just kind of a holy crap moment to see this in the box. So a big thank you to Metal Overkill for the Mendes Prey vinyl. One of, yeah, my real sort of, favorite pet bands of that era. So I think that's it. Apologies if somebody sent like one other disc or one other zine or something that I forgot to grab when putting this together. And I'm pretty sure I have caught up on VCLT thank yous. If you sent me something and I haven't included it in a video, I apologize. It's been a couple of crazy weeks here. This summer is playing out very weirdly. I've got a lot of stuff going on in different directions. But I really do appreciate it when folks take the time to send things. I've been sending out some VCLT stuff, to people here and there too. Just a nice thing to do. Sometimes you got a copy of something, you're like, I don't really need this. I could trade it in at the local store, but you know what? I bet so and so would like it. You send it to them, maybe it brightens their day a bit, gives them something fun to check out that they otherwise wouldn't get a chance to. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, it sounds interesting, send VCLT to somebody else. You can network through things like the Heavy Metallurgy Discord and, yeah, work those kind of things out if you want to. So that's going to do it for this video. Now, let's talk metal in the comments down below. Anything from this very random assorted stack of things that caught your eyes? Anyone familiar, for example, with Inner Siege? Does anyone know more about what Shock Paris is doing these days? Has anybody heard if Heavy Sentence has a new album in the works? It'd be cool to hear them do another one. Again, the Bang to Rights album is a really, really good one that got some attention when it came out a couple years ago, but it feels like it's definitely time for the band to follow up on it. So yeah, if you've got any news or views on any of the stuff that's been mentioned here, please leave a comment down below for folks to check out so that everybody can stay up to date and find out more about what's going on in the underground world of heavy metal that we all love so much. Time to hit the big red button that says stop now. So until next time, everybody take care, and as always, keep banging your head.